Hey guys, I want to talk to you today about kicking it up a notch using three-way calls. Three-way calls are crucial to building your business. They are so important, not only to build your business, but to also accelerate your learning curve. Three-way calls are also your classroom, and it's also a part of your training. When you hear somebody else talking about the product and or the business to your prospects over and over and over again, you pick up so many little bits of knowledge that you wouldn't otherwise have known. Right? Somebody who's been doing this longer than you knows a little bit more about Nerium and has more experience to share with the product, with your prospect than you do. So it's part learning and it's part growing your business. Just to share a story with you, like 12 years ago when I was learning how to do network marketing, we used to track everything. I used to track how many people I talked to in a week, how many phone calls I made, and all this stuff. And Mickey made it very, very clear to me one day that I needed to really focus on how many three-way calls I was doing. Three-way calls are part of the system. A three-way call is a crucial exposure for your prospect. You see, it takes the average person between 3 and 7 positive exposures to make a decision to either buy the product or join you in business. And three-way calls are exposures. And oftentimes, somebody who's looking at the business is going to need probably at least 1 or 2 three-way calls before they're ready to make a decision. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I was laser focused on doing as many three-way calls as I could. And guess what started to happen? I had this file on my computer and I called it Mickey One-Liners because you guys, if you've worked with Mickey, you know that she has an advertising background and the greatest one-liners come hurtling out of her mouth every time she speaks to someone. So I was taking notes, copying word for word the things that she was saying and getting her on the phone as much as humanly possible. And guess what happened? Within a very short period of time, the business builders that I brought in were using me as their expert in the three-way calls. And all I was doing was becoming a professional copycat and literally spewing out the exact same phrases that I heard Mickey say to my prospects. So talk about duplication. This is a business of becoming a professional copycat, right? And so you want to be learning exactly what to say using three-way calls. Okay, so there's 2 types of three-way calls that I want you guys to start using. The first type is a product follow-up three-way call. So every face that you borrow, we should be using a three-way call follow-up during their sample. And you don't have to necessarily use me or Mickey for these. You could be using somebody else within the team. In my opinion, if you have collected 6 customers, you could potentially be an expert on a three-way call. We're going to do a separate video about being an expert. So let's just talk about the types right now. So product follow-up three-way calls. I'm going to teach you how to introduce them as well. So when you're doing the product prospecting system, somebody has gone home with the product, you've taken the pictures, you've texted them on day 2 and asked, hey, did you use the product? Just wanted to see how night 1 went, because you're just finding out whether they used it. And on sometime in between day 3 and day 5, you want to try to get them on the phone for 5 or 10 minutes just to talk about their experience so far. You don't ever want to warn them that you're going to call them with somebody else. Just text them that morning and say, hey, do you have 5 minutes tonight around 7 o'clock? I want to touch base with about your experience so far. And they're going to text you back and say yes, no, or another time. And at that point, once you have that time booked, you would go to your expert and say, hey, I've got a product follow-up tonight at 7 o'clock. Can you help me? And that person is going to say yes, or you'll text a bunch of people, and one of us will get back to you and be there with you when you're following up with that product person. And here's why we want to do that. First of all, because every single time, 98.5% of the time on day 3, 4, or 5 during a follow-up, and we say, hey, how's it going? What do you like the best about your product experience so far? And they always say, well, I'm not sure I'm seeing anything yet. Every time. And then your expert who has more than 6 customers already, which means they've borrowed more than 20 or 30 faces, so they've heard this 20 or 30 times now. They can just kind of say, ha ha ha, if I had a nickel for every time I heard that. Actually, that's what this person said, the person that's doing the three-way call, that's what this person said when she was doing her product trial too. She didn't think she was getting a result either, but you just wait until you see those pictures. So that helps you have a third party in there that is going to validate what you've been saying and can share experiences and share their stories with their people that they have borrowed the faces of. Also, the other thing that could happen during that sample is somebody could have a small breakout. It happens. It's an antioxidant product. It's pulling imperfections out of the skin. And that person whose face you're boring could get discouraged. So having somebody in there with experience could go ahead and just tell them, this is an antioxidant product. That's a good thing. You need to muscle through that. And once that's out, like once you've pulled those impurities out, you'll probably have way fewer breakouts using the product on an ongoing basis. So there's a couple of reasons, right? So your expert can share stories, can answer some questions, possibly alleviate some pain if they're experiencing a breakout, and also that third party that you've brought in, your expert, can also just build rapport and get to the 3-year free. So we're going to talk about that on a different video on how to be an expert. But you want somebody in there to help you follow up with this person. So here's how you introduce your expert during a 3-way call follow-up for product. Okay, so this is on 3, 4, or 5, day 3, 4, or 5, and you've got your expert. You call them first, and then you call the person whose face you're borrowing. So you would introduce it like this. Let's say I'm borrowing Angie's face, and I've got Mickey as my expert. Okay, so I'd call up Mickey first, and then I would call up Angie. Hey, Angie, it's Michelle. Do you still have 5 minutes to talk right now? And she's going to say yes. You always ask permission to make sure. And then without getting into small talk, because you don't want to do that, you want to launch right into the fact that you have somebody on the line with you. Hey, Angie, that's awesome. You know what? Listen, I've got my girlfriend on the line with us. Her name's Mickey. You're gonna absolutely adore her. She's been actually using the product for a little bit longer than me, and when I told her that you were trying the product and we're really excited about the results, we just thought we'd call you back together. So Mickey, I'd like you to meet my friend Angie, right? Just something like that, and then you zip it and you let Mickey come in there and start building rapport and asking questions with your prospect. So it's not weird. Every single time when introduced that way, that person is like, oh, cool, hi. It's never like weird. Okay, so the other type of 3-way call is when somebody is evaluating the business. So remember that 3 to 7 exposures? If somebody is evaluating the business, there's a good chance they've had 5 exposures already. They've had a product sample, they've watched a video, they've had a product follow-up, they might have been to a real results party, they might have watched another video at home, and this could be, 5th or 6th exposure. Okay, so same thing. Hey Angie, do you have a few minutes tonight? I just want to touch base about Nerium. And then you get the time. And then you go to your upline. Again, at this point, you want to use somebody who's probably director or above, somebody who's earned their investment back and maybe can share a story about earning the iPad or the Lexus or something like that. So you want to use somebody for a business follow-up with a little bit more experience than just a couple of customers. So you set that call up. Then you come to your expert, set them up. Same thing. You're going to call your expert first, and then you're going to call Angie. And this is how this one's going to go, because she's already had a 3-way call. So it's not going to surprise her at all. So you're going to call, you're going to, once again, ask permission if they've got 5 minutes still to chat. Hey, Angie, it's Michelle. Is this still a good time? Okay, awesome. Hey, Angie, I was just speaking with another one of my girlfriends, Monica. Monica is actually the girl that called Mickey and introduced her to Nerium, and she has done phenomenally in the business. Not only has she got the iPad and the Lexus, but she's also among some of the top weekly check earners in the company and has been consistently for the last 2 years. Anyway, I just thought it would be really good for you to hear her story so that you're hearing about this, again, from somebody other than me. So, Monica, this is my good friend Angie. And then, again, you zip it. And then Monica will come in and build rapport with Angie and then share her story about what's happened with the business. Okay, so 3-way calls, we need to be using them product prospecting and on potential business builders.